Hi everyone, today is June 8th, 2019, and this is a Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is Green Ranger, and this week, not a whole lot is going on in Duel World again, because the regional representative qualifiers are happening. Stage 1 went through almost all of last week, part of the week before, and yesterday Stage 2 began, which officially kicked off into the RRQs, as they say, which would DLV Max. They separate everyone by groups, and you're basically dueling for those top spots in your region. There are some issues about the regions and, you know, how many people are in each region and whatever, how many countries, how many whatever, but, it's basically the same thing as the Kaiba Cup, really, and, so there, there's a focus on PvP, so that's why there's not a ton going on, but we're going to talk about some of the decks that we see. We're going to talk about some of the tournaments, a bunch of tournaments to talk about, some of the winning deck lists there as well. But also, podcast questions of the week is based off my own observations about structured decks. And so there's a lot of discussion about whether structured decks are good for the game, and it seems there is a heavy focus on the best decks in the meta being the structured decks. So there's a lot of conversation on Twitter that I've collected, so we're going to talk about all that too. Inglorious Bastion is back. There's only 2 new cards this time, so it's supposed to be a small event. While this is going on, the regional qualifiers are going on, so not much of a focus there, but there is a pretty interesting card here that could spawn a deck. I don't know. And finally, Doug Dimmadule is here. He's going to talk about Violons. If you ever were interested in playing Violons, he has a deck for you that could have some competitive upside based on his own experiences, so check him out later on the episode. First off, I will talk about my week in Duel World. It went pretty slowly, frankly. I didn't get into Stage 2 of the qualifiers until yesterday, so I was a day behind, almost a day behind, but at that point, most of the competition has gone into Stage 2, but I decided, if you've been following my playing, I've had an identity crisis, I guess. I haven't had a right deck to play, and I kind of decided, I was shifting between many decks, Synchrons, Noble Knights, Red Eyes, none of them seemed to stick, and then I realized, I almost have a complete 6 Samurai deck. I might as well play that. I think the nerf kind of tarnished it for me, but it took me a while to realize that is my best deck. That is the card. That is the deck that I have almost every card of. The one card that still eludes me is the 3rd legendary 6 Samurai Kizin, and I figured I could get by with just one missing card. So I played that deck. I went back on Duel Links meta, and there's this guide by Emma Valentine that was updated, and I saw one of the decks that she got King of Games with, so I retooled the deck just for the reason of my not having a 3rd Kizin, and I did that with a meta call in Skullmeister, which is also a monster, so I figured it'll fill some of the roles. I lose some of the consistency, but basically this deck is a beatdown 6 Samurai deck. You've got one Grandmaster of the 6 Samurai, which I luckily have one copy of anyways. It's level 5. And that card kind of works for the Black Rose Dragon, because there's a level 2 tuner as well. And that is Secret 6 Samurai Genba. So those 2 can come out, and then you can get Black Rose Dragon and blow up the board if you need it. 3 Kizins in this deck. Of course, I run 2, and I have a Skullmeister, 2 Inishi, 1 Kizaru. Inishi's always good. Hard removal card. Probably one of the best cards to have in the deck. Kizaru is 1900 attack and also gets you card advantage when you special summon him from probably Fuma or Shen's Dojo. Iru, 6 Samurai Iru is an older card, but it's pretty good against the Subterrors or Sazank for that matter. Any set face down monster. Of course, you have your 3/6 Secret 6 Samurai Fuma, which is the main tuner to get up to level 5. Genba, as I mentioned, you have one copy of that. This has some banish synergy when you banish stuff with Anishi, so You get one of those cards back, and also it's specifically there for Grandmaster. 3 Six Samurai United for the massive card draw. 2 Dojos because it was nerfed. 2 Powerful Rebirth. That's a card that adds a level to your card, so you could use that to get Kizaru back for that card advantage. You could use it for Anishi to bounce something. You could use it to Fuma to tune again. But note that it'll change levels, of course. And Shinzeng Hu, lockdown trap card against the back row. The synchro deck here is a little different. There's a Black Rose Dragon, of course, Armadides, 2 Legendary Six Samurai Shien. She runs HTS Psyhemoth, which I don't have. I have a different level 6. I think I have the Gaia monster, so that's a 2600. The level 6 synchros are actually quite depleted when you don't have Psychic Nightmare. Psyhemoth is a selection box card, so not everyone has it. Psychic Nightmare only works with Psychic Tuners, I think, so there's no Psychic Tuners there. I was actually playing the deck with Psychic Nightmare in it, and I found out I couldn't synchro summon because I have my, these 2 adding 6. It didn't work out. It's pretty embarrassing. I have Gaia. Another card that could work is Stardust Charge Warrior. That only hits everyone, but Stardust Charge Warrior isn't great in this deck because you need Psychic Tracker, in my opinion. Psychic Tracker gives it 600 attack, and a card with 2600 attack that can attack every special summoned monster is decent. A card with 2000 attack that attacks every special summoned monster can possibly hit no one, so that's the reason I did not add Stardust Charge Warrior. And of course, this deck actually works very well with the Contact Fusion card Secret Six Samurai Rihan. And the reason for that is there's a lot of attributes in this deck. You've got a lot of Earth monsters. You got your necessary Light monsters, which is Anishi. Iru's a Dark. Fuma's a Wind. And Genba's a Fire. So you've got a lot of different attributes. And I find that Rihan is actually sometimes your only out against a deck like Yubel. Rihan is the only out. So, anytime you need to banish something or there's like a graveyard protection, Rihan works very well with this deck. Of course, with the powerful rebirths in this deck too. So that can, you might pull out a monster just for their attribute, and you have your things in your hand that work out. So, as of now, I just hit stage 2 last night, so I, had a little bit of time, less than an hour, I guess, to play. I have 2690 DP, which is not a ton. Right now in North America, I'm ranked 5959. Of course, I'm not competing for anything, but just trying to get a respectable rank. If I do nothing right now, I'll probably stay top 10,000, but I'll try to do a little better so I can have a little thing on my achievement bar. I kind of wish the achievement bar is, you could get rid of some of this stuff. Like, I don't care if people saw that I completed Hasselberry's event or whatever. I just want those ranks, actually. So that would be a great feature for Konami to have, so you could, show certain achievements and not show others. That would be great. But I plan on playing for these 2 more days with this deck. It's working decently, and we'll see where I go. Enough about me. In terms of esports, I have 4 tournaments to talk about. First one happened last week. Dueling's Meta Championship Series 19. It's been a while. I mean, it's been a while since the first one. I remember when these first started. And here's number 19. Blue Eyes, Subterror were the main decks that did very well in the top 32. Kawaki Meiru and Red Eyes also did pretty well. First place, Minato, Light and Dark Spellbooks. Spellbooks, of course, they're not my favorite deck because it takes forever for them to play. But Light and Dark has given the deck new life. And, of course, their Silent Magicians are light monsters. You got 2 Breakers. Breakers are very good for Spellbooks because they struggle with back row. The only back row card they had was Spellbook of Fate, which is now semi-limited, and also you sometimes want to use it on a monster to win the game. So if you're using your Spellbooks of Fate on the back row, that's just one-on-one removal. It takes forever. So that's why Breaker's here. And there's one Kaiku, the Ghost Destroyer. Haiku has a situational, inflict battle damage, banish 2 monsters in the graveyard. This is just to counter the meta, I think. You can kind of choose a different dark monster if you want to, but this one is a good meta call with all the blue eyes and red eyes running around. So that's what this deck is. Otherwise, it's the regular spellbook deck. Second place, Rambition, Switcheroo, Kwakimeru Neos. Kwakimeru Neos are a great combination. This is a pretty typical deck. Got Gale Lizard, Sphere Karibo is kind of tech cards. Bacon Saver and AD Changer are the fusers, with Neos, Kwakimeru Ice, and Maximus are the only ones you run nowadays. Third place, Rookie, Light and Dark, Buster Blader, Red Eyes. This is a combination we're starting to see now in these tournaments. Light and Dark works very well. You have Black Metal Dragon, which is a dark. Buster Whelp of Destruction Swordsman is level 1 light. So they're both level 1s. And of course, that's basically the synergy you're going for. Also, the Blackstone of Legend is a level 1 too. And this deck runs a quick play Karma of the Destruction Swordsman, which is one of those cards you use to help your Buster Blader, but it also banishes 3 monsters in the opponent's graveyard. So again, this is a counter against Blue Eyes primarily. You deplete the Blue Eyes of their graveyard, they can't really do anything else. Third place, Phenom AR, Sealed Tombs, Blue Eyes. This one is your typical Snipe Hunter build. Snipe Hunter throws stuff away. That typically is the Whitestone of Ancients or Dawn Knight. It also runs the Keeper of the Shrine, which is a new dragon. Counts as 2 tributes. It does a ton of other stuff too, so it's a very solid card that finally saw some play. Alright, so that's the Duel Links Meta Championship Series. In the same group, Duel Links Meta Weekly 75 happened on June 5th. And Wakimeru showed up a lot, but Subterrors took over. They took the top prizes in this tournament. First place, Lund's Mask Tribute Subterror. This is a typical deck. 2 Uma Strix, 3 Stygo Kraken, 3 Golem Sentry, 3 Sub-Nemesis Warrior, Cosmic Cyclone, Econ, 3 Paleozoic Canada, 3 Final Battle trap cards, and 1 Treacherous. Treacherous and Econ are kind of the 1-1 split is in a lot of decks you see. And Treacherous is very good because the deck does lose to Brick sometimes, so that's what it's there for. Second place, Emerson, Mass Tribute Subterror. This is a different version of the deck. You've got 2 Chalice, 2 Floodgate, no Econ or Treacherous, but otherwise the same deck pretty much. 2 Golem Sentry only. Yeah, otherwise the same. This sideboard also has 2 mirrors, the Light Imprisoning Mirror and the Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. I think, if you're facing Blue Eyes, use the light one. If you're facing Red Eyes, Buster Blader, whatever, it's the Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. Shut down those decks. Edu 16, third place, Light and Dark, Red Eyes, Buster Blader. Another one where you combine the 2 archetypes, of course, because the Black Metal Dragon and the Buster Whelp work very well together. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same deck. No quick play that removes stuff from the graveyard, though. Oh, it's in the sideboard, actually. And third place, Blarahan, Mass Tribute, Subterror, Red Eyes Subterror. So, this is a combination of Red Eyes and Subterror. This is 2 warriors, the AD Changer, and then the 3 Subterror Nemesis warriors. Seems natural to combine these 2, actually. Subterrors are a control archetype. They clear the board. Red Eyes aren't a great control archetype. They're more offense. Red Eyes / can negate stuff sometimes, but it's more of an offensive deck, so you combine the 2, and here it is. Another tournament that went on. This is from Duel Links Taiwan, weekly number 59. It happened last week. First place, DDD Light and Dark 6 Samurai. Here we have a different version. Using Light and Dark, of course. And I guess the only monsters that are switching out are Anishi and Secret. legendary secret of the Six Samurai. Those are the light and dark monsters. Otherwise, this is a Six Samurai build. 1 United only. 3 dual wield, so that's the card they use for hard removal. And 3 World Legacy Clash. World Legacy Clash is a card that actually works okay because Anishi only has 2500 attack. Most of those meta monsters, with blue eyes and whatnot, they're, a lot. They're, with beatdown, they're 3000 something. So, combat trick to beat those cards. Second place, Buns Draco. 2 decks here. Sealed Tombs, Red Eyes. This is a pure Red Eyes deck. You've got Buster Blader in here just to fuse with the Slash Dragons, but otherwise a typical Red Eyes deck. And Switcheroo, Kawakimeru Neos. Not too remarkable here. You've got your Ices again and Gale Lizard as the cards. Third place, Zaid King, Sealed Tombs, Blue Eyes Neos. Blue Eyes Kawakimeru deck. And Sealed Tombs, Buster Blader, Red Eyes. This is I don't think I've seen Kawakimeru and Blue Eyes used together, but it's just Kawakimeru Ice and 2 Diamond Cores. It's a hard removal role that Snipe Hunter did fill, though. So it's pretty much the Blue Eyes deck without Snipe Hunter, and you got your Kawakimeru Ice. The Red Eyes deck is the Necrofusion build. This is kind of the deck that I played when I played Red Eyes, and it was using Necrofusion as an extra fuse card. And third place, Bigao, Sealed Tombs, Blue Eyes. And this is the typical Snipe Hunter build. Not much to say outside of that. And Light and Dark Spellbooks. Previously, we saw the deck. We saw a person run Kaiku. This one runs Magical Something as the extra dark monster with the breakers. And Magical Something is pretty much a recycle for Spellbook of Fate. So there's some synergy. There's some validity in using Magical Something. Kaiku is more of a situational, but it is a removal of graveyard monsters. So pick whichever one you want, I guess. And finally, the Homie Cup. This happened June 2nd. These decks seemed a little more casual. It's more fun, I guess. We could see some different decks. Sort of. First place, Switcheroo Volcanic Neos. So Volcanics are here. Everyone forgot they existed. They came out in the Primal Burst box. That was ages ago. But basically, the Neos engine makes this work. And this deck uses life points as a resource. It's all on Volcanic Shell. Pay 500 life points, add Volcanic Shell from your deck to your hand, and then use that for ammunition for Snipe Hunter and also Blaze Accelerator. So we're basically removing things constantly, paying life points, and you have some extra power from Neos. Second place, Kuya Hertz, Light and Dark Red Eyes Buster Blader. Yeah, taking advantage of the level 1s, working together, Light and Dark. Armor of Destruction Swordsman to banish stuff from the graveyard. Third place, Lil Hormagon. This is the three archetype Cyber Dark Kawakimeru Neos deck. We've seen this before. Pretty much the same deck as the one we saw before, but Cyber Dark Package, Cyber Dark Edge, Cannon, and also Lang Ling. In Kawakimeru, you've got Sandman, Maximus, Ice, and 3 Diamond Cores and 1 Iron Core. And the Neos package is just Bacon Saver and 2 Neos and the fusions, of course. And third place, Legend Daddy 00, Beatdown Red Eyes. Just your Red Eyes deck. You've got some different warrior monsters to fuse. And this one, interestingly, runs Toon Buster Blader instead of regular Buster Blader. I don't know why this is here, but this card doesn't exist. Like, it doesn't... It has no downside over the regular Buster Blader, I guess. So you could just run this one instead. Talked a lot through the decks, and you could see some themes. There were a lot of light and dark decks. It kills me sometimes that the skill is a drop skill, and I've played I'm almost level 45 with Loomis and Umbra, and I still don't have it. And it's such a good skill, and sometimes you get screwed over by RNG and you don't have it. You also see a lot of decks from structured decks, of course, and also a lot of combined decks. There's mixing of archetypes going on. Depending on how you look at it, that could be a good thing, that could be a bad thing, but I'm seeing a lot of the same cards. Dueling's meta also updated the tier list for the regional representative qualifiers. Blue Eyes and Kwakimeru are tier 1. Kwakimeru gets a lot of help being the Neos deck, I guess. Tier 2, Red Eyes, Subterror, and Spellbooks. Yeah. Red Eyes is definitely used in a lot of packages with Buster Blader, which makes it very good. Subterrors have gone down a little bit because they struggle against the top decks. Tier 3, Ancient Gears, Buster Blader, Neos, Six Samurai, Synchrons. I don't know how they kind of parse these out because Buster Blader and Neos are packages, so I'm not really sure what's going on there. Ancient Gears we know is a bit lower. Their consistency depends on double Cyclone into whatever, destroying their own field, so that's what they're all about. And Synchrons are here too. And Dinosaurs and Metaphys have been removed. So these are kind of based on best of one ladder formats. The best decks for winning one game in your climb. That kind of led me, just playing in the meta in general, looking at all these decks, led me to the podcast question of the week. Is the Duel Links meta too reliant on structured deck buy-throughs? Now, with structured decks, after the fiasco that happened with Silent Magician, EX structured deck where you could only buy it with money, they let you buy the first deck nowadays for gems and then the next two for money. So, I forget how much it is. I think it's $2.99 for the first one on a sale. And then the second one is like $5 or $6. But a lot of the top decks are decks where you need to buy 3 buy-throughs of a structured deck just to get every card. For example, Red Eyes Fusion, you need 3 Red Eyes Fusion cards for that. Blue Eyes deck, you need Cosmo Brains, for example. You need the Spirit of White. So, the question here had 3 choices. Is the Duel Links meta too reliant on structured deck buy-throughs? Yes. The top decks are all money. Yes, there's not enough deck diversity. Or no, you can do fine without them. 47% of respondents said yes, the top decks are all money-based. 16% said yes, there's not enough diversity. That's the problem with the decks. And also no, you can do well. 37% said no, you can do well without them. So, there's a lot of discussion here. I think there's a lot of ways to look at this. This is a very complicated issue. Yes, they're more efficient. These structured decks are more efficient than buying packs for money, but you're starting to see the same decks. So I'm kind of blending it, the money and diversity thing. A lot of decks are just cast off completely because these cards are just better and you get them right away. And you lose a lot of uniqueness to decks, I think, but at the same time, what choice does a player have, I guess? So it's a practicality thing versus how creative you want to be, I guess. That's the conflict I have with it. Go through some of the responses to this poll. Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Talk, Doug Dimmadul says, I love the idea of structured decks, but players will start shying away from investing in boxes if the structured decks are too strong. It's possible that Konami found that structured decks were just more profitable. I'm not sure if the guaranteed money was better than... I don't know if people actually spent money on boxes, to be honest. It seems they have a sale sometimes, and people go for like the cheap sale. That's what I do typically, but in terms of those really big packages, I'm not sure if people want them. And people are turned off by number, obviously, but the quality of the boxes is always a crapshoot too, so I share the same concerns there. Doomstrike 13 responded. I'm sure he responded to Doug, or he's talking to himself. But I think structured decks allow an easy way to get to plat, but have a roof of where they will get a player to. If you want to be king of games, you need lots of money and or massive free time. He also wrote, Red Eyes is my main deck at the moment, but I use cards I've gotten from elsewhere to buff it. I feel the top decks require multiple box buyouts, which the gist of the player base can't afford. So structured decks offer some of those cards for Gen Pop to use to climb. Yeah, very good points here by Doomstrike. That's all there is to say. It's the efficient way to get somewhere, but you need to add cards, of course, to make the optimal decks. People can't afford buying through a box 3 times for a UR to make some deck. It's kind of my case with Synchrons. So Miltum25 and Card Game Penguin are in a discussion here. Miltum25 says, it's a mixture of both because honestly investing in boxes suck. Because it is so random, you can get screwed investing in a box, and the card you want is the last card in the box. I've seen it happen. At least the structured deck Konami gets its money, and we get what we want. Card Game Penguin says, I really have no issue with people investing in structured decks. They're an inexpensive way for people to compete in PvP. If it helps people enjoy their time in the game, no issues. When the people who don't want to invest can't enjoy the game any longer, that's an issue. Milton25 response, true, and at the moment people can still be competitive if they focus on one deck at a time. The problem with free-to-play players sometimes is they spend their gems recklessly on all boxes and then get mad when they don't have one complete deck, so they say Konami sucks. Card Game Penguin responds, that's exactly this. While I don't mind spending a little money on the game, I'm a notorious gem hoarder. I've been known to have 15,000 to 20,000 gems saved before spending them on a box. Doing that, I've managed to build decks that do okay on the ladder, and I enjoy. Great conversation here. Milton25 is on my friends list. He's a guy who gets King of Games, and then he gets it with another account. So he's a really good player. And of course, that's the problem. People don't invest their gems wisely. That's kind of the fancy I was talking about. Like, sometimes I will just go into a box to try to get a card, but that's not the best way. That's not the best plan to build a deck. That's why I was kind of stuck in my situation where I couldn't really play anything until I realized I had 6 samurais all along. That's kind of stupid, but that's kind of what you have to fight. That if you're not spending money on the game, that's the thing you have to fight. It's a struggle. Card Game Penguin responded on his own. I've invested in Ancient Gears, Neos, and Red Eyes 3 times each just because why not? What? I'm playing at DLV 25 with Dark Lords. So this guy, he's bought through everything and then he's playing Dark Lords, so he has the option to be super competitive deck, but he's playing Dark Lords, so I guess he's choosing that path. Whatever makes you happy, of course. People have different reasons for playing games. Wildcat Jakey says, right now, absolutely. Red Eyes, Blue Eyes, and Ancient Gears are all top tier and all really good. I understand they want new players to be able to compete, but it hurts their existing players. I think what Wildcat Jakey is saying is someone could just come into the game fresh, install Duel Links right now, and buy these structured decks, and then they could beat someone who's been playing for 2 years like me. Something like that, I guess. And it does devalue a lot of the old boxes. People probably won't be buying the old boxes if those cards are just creeped out of existence. Living Sword says, the first deck I've ever made was Aramages, and it still kicks ass. Still use it, and I combined the last 2 sentences. No structured deck cards in it. I do admit to having Red Eyes, Neos, and Reactor Dragon decks though. Aramages are a trader deck. They're the most budget deck you can think of because you get all their cards from the card trader. That's the I don't know what you call that. It's just the free to play deck. All right. So we had a great discussion on Twitter. This was, these questions sometimes I hit and miss. I just thought about it when I was at work, and I was like, oh shit, I have to put a question online That's typically how it works. I'm working on Wednesday, and yeah, it just comes to me, I guess. So hopefully there will be future very good discussions like this in the future. Yeah. All right. Bastion is back. Inglorious Bastion number 2. It's 2 new cards. We kind of talked about these cards before. We mentioned them, but this is just a little thing. He shows up very so often. I actually didn't even get all the cards from the last guy, Kalen Kessler, so it's possible I don't get all these cards as well, but I feel like there are many ways to get back old cards. So 2 new cards, Nine-Tailed Fox. Level 6 zombie, 2200 attack, 2000 defense. If this card is in your hand or graveyard, you can tribute 2 monsters. Special summon this card. You can only use this effect of Nine-Tailed Fox once per turn. If this card that was special summoned from the graveyard attacks a defense position monster and inflict piercing damage, battle damage. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, special summon 2 Fox tokens with 500 attack and defense that are zombies. So this card's can self-resurrect, right? You can, if it's in your hand or graveyard, sacrifice 2, so it's a level 6, but you sacrifice 2. And then when this is destroyed, you get 2 back, 2 tokens back, 500 attack and defense. In a way, this could be regenerating. You could use the Fox tokens again to keep bringing it back, so it's like an infinite loop, if you will. But that's reliant on those tokens surviving the turn. There's some stall potential here. I think there is something here, but in the end, it's just a 2200 with piercing, which doesn't get over anything. If you're just stalling around, I guess there's a point if you're stalling around, but otherwise, I don't know. It's hard to say. This could be good. This could be good. It could be just overlapped by what a stall deck typically uses nowadays. It's hard to say. The more exciting card, in my opinion, is the SR Amano Iwado. It's a Rock Spirit, 1900 attack, 1200 defense, level 4. Cannot be special summoned. Monsters cannot activate their effects except for spirit monsters. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card was normal summoned or flipped face up this turn, return this to the hand. So what this does is it locks down effects of monsters, activated effects. That's important. So if a monster has a passive effect, it will stay on the board, but an active effect, let's say a Gozuki, dumping something in the graveyard, Cosmo Brain, tributing a monster, Red Eyes Archfiend of Lightning, using its ability to destroy stuff. So any of those activated effects are negated. That's not bad. Of course, spirit monsters never saw play. They return to the hand at the end of the turn. You could have a 2-card combo, though. You could use Forbidden Chalice on this at the end of the turn, and then it stays on the board forever or so, as long as it's not destroyed. I mean, you could hard remove it with a spell or a trap, but those monster effects that would, banish this or whatever, they wouldn't go through. There might be something sneaky here with Forbidden Chalice, but it is a clunky 2-card combo, which doesn't really work out, but this card could be fun in an annoying way to stall out opponent cards. And we are seeing a bunch of lockdown cards. I've noticed that. And this is just another one. It's a great card to have, I think, if you're building such a deck. Those are the new cards with Bastion. He's got, his Chemic Critters. He's got Shuten Doji and Red Ogre and all that stuff. Alright, so Doug Dimmadule is here. He's going to talk about Vylons. Vylons are a deck that never really saw competitive play, but they have a ton of tools. I think most of them came with the Power Tool Dragon box, and this deck actually runs Power Tool Dragon, but it's a lab builder deck that focuses on synchro summons. You got your level 5, and then you work from there. And a lot of equip spells, a lot of different Vylon equip spells. So if you like that kind of play, and if you don't like that kind of play, you just want to check out a deck, here is Doug Dimmadule, Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Talk, with his Vylon deck.
Hey there, this is Doug Dimmadul with Doug's Casual Deck of the Week. This week, I want to talk about a Labyrinth Builder deck using Vylon Epsilon. It's the level 8 Fairy Synchro with 2800 attack and 1200 defense. It requires that one light tuner and one or more non-tuner monsters. Now, the reason why this card is so great is because equip cards equipped to this card cannot be targeted by cards or effects. Once per turn, you could also send one equipped card equipped to this monster to the graveyard to target one monster your opponent controls and destroy that target. Honestly, I'm not really sure if I've really used that second effect a lot using this deck, but it does come in handy every once in a while. So my build is a little bit different. It's one where basically as long as you have one of your tuners in your hand, you will be able to go into either a level 7 or a level 8 synchro play immediately. Now, if you're not familiar with the skill Labyrinth Builder, it's one that you could get from the Paradox Brothers that allows you to shuffle 2 cards from your hand back into your deck to put one Labyrinth Wall onto your field. It's a level 5 normal Earth monster, so there's certain cards that you won't necessarily be able to synchro into using it, so you try and go for some generic level 7s. So the generic level 7s that I have is Black Rose Dragon in the extra deck. As you know, it's a level 7 tuner. You just need a tuner and a non-tuner, and basically what you're then able to do is once you summon it onto the field, you can blow up the entire board, which is just an excellent skill. I've actually used that time and time again. The other level 7 monster that I use is Power Tool Dragon. You know this one pretty well. It's from one of the older boxes. A level 7 machine synchro, 2300 attack, 2500 defense. Once per turn, you can reveal 3 equipped spell cards from your deck. Then your opponent randomly adds one of them to your hand. So also, if this card would be destroyed while equipped with an equipped spell card, you can send one of those cards to the graveyard instead of Power Tool Dragon being destroyed. Really good, and I do run a lot of equipped cards in this deck, so Power Tool Dragon is the ideal level 7 play for this. Now, I'm also going to run a few copies of the Tricky, so as the last spot that I'm filling, it's an Arcanite Magician, that level 7 spellcaster, because whenever it's summoned, you put those 2 spell counters on it. You can remove 1 spell counter from Arcanite Magician to pop a card on the field. You could do it at least one more time, or if you have other cards with spell counters on them, you could keep on using this effect until you basically, one by one, start destroying cards on your opponent's board. So as far as monsters are concerned in the deck, I run 3 copies of the Tricky. It's a level 5 spellcaster, 2000 attack, 1200 defense. You can special summon this card from your hand by discarding 1 card. It's the special summon something level 5 onto the field. Hopefully you'll have either a level 2 or a level 3 tuner to either go into one of your level 7 plays or one of your level 8 plays. Now, as for the tuners that I run in this deck, I run 3 copies of Vylon Cube. This is probably the best tuner that I have out of this bunch because you're able to get into the Epsilon play by either using your Labyrinth Wall or by using the Tricky as your non-tuner. So this is a level 3 tuner. If this card is sent to the graveyard for the synchro summon of a light monster, you can add 1 equipped spell card from your deck to your hand. It doesn't limit which type of equipped spell card it could be, so you could search out your Power of the Guardians, you could search out maybe an Axe of Despair. There's a few Vylon equipped cards that I run in this deck. I don't run too many, but I do run some pretty crucial ones. But yeah, Vylon Cube is ultimately the card that you really want to end up having as your tuner. The other level 3 tuner that I run is Vylon Stella. It's a fairy tuner, 1400 attack, 200 defense. If this card is sent from the monster card zone to the graveyard, you can pay 500 life points, then target 1 face-up monster you control, equip this card to that target. At the end of the damage step, if the equipped monster battled an opponent's monster, destroy that opponent's monster. So, another pretty good one, but again, I prefer Vylon Cube. It really gets your plays going. Now, I do finish off with 3 copies of Vylon Tetra. It's the level 2 machine tuner, 900 attack, 900 defense. If this card is sent from the monster card zone to the graveyard, you could pay 500 life points, then target 1 face-up monster you control, equip this card to that target. If the equipped monster would be destroyed, you can destroy this equipped card instead. So it's good protection. I really like it, but overall, this is a good package of tuners for you to run. Now, what about the equipped spell cards that I run? I do run those 2 copies of Axe of Despair. It is just a way to boost your attack by 1,000. Also, it allows you the opportunity, if it is destroyed, to then tribute one of your monsters on the field if you want to get it off the field, to then put this card back on the top of your deck. I don't really use that effect, but it's just nice to have a generic 1,000 attack booster. It could go a long way, especially with so many monsters sitting at over 3,000 attack in the current meta. The next card is really the equipped card you want to have more often than not, especially if you're going second and you could basically swing in your first battle phase immediately. Power of the Guardians. If an attack is declared involving this equipped monster, involving the equipped monster to this card, place 1 spell counter on this card. The equipped monster gains 500 attack and defense for each spell counter. If the equipped monster would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can remove 1 spell counter from your field instead. So this is the ideal equip card to have. Hopefully you could get a synchro play going with your Vylon Cube. Search out Power of the Guardians, and then your level 8 Epsilon should have a Power of the Guardians attached to it as an equip card. Now keep in mind, because it's equipped to Epsilon, it's not able to be targeted. So if your opponent's trying to use a Cosmic Cyclone on it, or if they're trying to use something to pop your back row, it's not going to happen unless it's a card that specifically does not target the spell and trap card zone, which is kind of few and far between. But yeah, this is really the card you want to go for. And then to further solidify that Vylon Epsilon, the card that I really try and run, and I run 2 copies in this deck, is Vylon Segment. You equip only to a Vylon monster. It cannot be targeted by the opponent's monster effects or trap effects. If this face-up card on the field is sent to the graveyard, you could add 1 Vylon spell card from your deck to your hand. That does have a lot of synergy with Epsilon's effect, where it sends an equipped card to the graveyard to then pop one of your opponent's monsters. Then you could search out another Vylon spell, so you could just keep on going with your plays. The other Vylon spell I use is Vylon Material. You equip only to a Vylon monster. It gains 600 attack. If this face-up card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you could add 1 Vylon spell card from your deck to your hand. So overall, your place that you could really try and run into is ideally a Vylon Epsilon with one of your good equipped spells, or worst case scenario, if your opponent has just a really good first turn and you're able to have that level 2 Vylon Tetra in your hand, hopefully you could get your Labyrinth builder going. Use your Vylon Tetra as your tuner and jump right into a Black Rose Dragon play where you blow up the entire board and try and hopefully survive until the next turn and get something going. So, there's just multiple ways to use this. I found that in a lot of the matchups that I was using this deck for at Duel Level Max, I know it's kind of a more casual play style since people like to try new decks, but I did play a lot of significantly good archetypes. Played some Sub-Terror decks, played some Six Samurai decks, played some Ancient Gear decks that were built pretty much optimized, and this deck did hold its own against a lot of those. Now, there's a few scenarios where if just your opponent has a really good hand and they're flipping your Vylon Epsilon just face down, that could really pretty much blow your entire strategy. But hopefully you could have a Vylon Segment equipped to it before your opponent can try and get any of their plays going where they're trying to target your monster with a trap effect or a monster effect. But other than that, yeah, this deck, it could fall flat on its face, but the consistency factor using Labyrinth Builder almost guarantees that on your first turn or on your second turn, you're able to at least synchro into a level 7 or a level 8 monster basically right away. So this does add a level of consistency that I feel like was lacking for a while with synchro decks. Aside from specialized synchro archetypes, this is more of a generic one, but it really, I like having equipped run decks because it's not something that you really see often. I like to see that equipped decks aren't entirely dead. Same thing with Vylon decks. It's not something that you see often, but honestly, right now, it's pretty effective. So I definitely recommend you playing this one if you're doing some casual play or if you're playing some PvE. You'll find that it's a pretty nice strategy, and it's one that I think you'll enjoy. This is one that I've had a lot of fun playing. So anyway, that's it for this week's Doug's Casual Deck of the Week, and I'll see you next time. Take care.
All right, thanks, Doug. And you can check him out every week on this podcast and on his own Twitter feed, Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Talk. All right. Upcoming news. Regional qualifiers continue till the 10th. Probably end of the night Sunday will end at 1 a.m. So in Eastern time. Dino DNA, Hasselberry will be back probably early next week. Tour Guide Mission Bingo for more rewards. Dual Quest is happening at the end of the month. Fantastic Pegasus with Toon Cyber Dragon and Toon Gemini Elf at the end of the month. Tristan Taylor's retired. He's going to the gate at the end of the month. And the Raid Duel the Flames of Vengeance, Kapakapu, and we get to acquire Kalen Kessler, of course, so more edginess to the game. Alright, so that's it for the podcast today. We had a great discussion on Twitter. Let's keep it up. I think addressing the matters of the community and the concerns is definitely something that has to be discussed more, I guess, with the game's evolution, and of course that in turn, Konami does listen to players when making Duel Links. So, if you want change, if the game's boring you in any way, this is definitely good stuff to talk about. So, and you're welcome to send me any ideas. As I mentioned, this just came to my mind on Wednesday. That's why there's so many bad questions, because they just come to me and it's a bad question. But I just happened to get a good question this week. So feel free to contact me if you have any ideas about polls or anything, so I could, circulate it to the masses. Listen and subscribe to this podcast anywhere, we're everywhere. Just search the Duel Assessment. Check out the podcast and more at the website. That's where all these show notes are, theduelassessment.wordpress.com. Email theduelassessment@gmail.com, or better yet, Twitter, duel_assessment, or my personal account at GreenRangerCCG. Alright, so thanks for listening. Good luck in the regional representative qualifiers. Hopefully someone can hit it out and go to Germany and play some esports. Alright, see you later.